Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to my video blog for the Bournemouth Film and Comic Con. It's actually the second time I've done this because I recorded most of the first one and then found out the sound wasn't working properly. So I've moved on to my iPad to record it from my laptop, so hopefully this is working. Yes, it's now Thursday the 3rd of September. Bournemouth Comic Con was on the 29th and 30th of August at the Bournemouth International Centre, or BIC, or BIC. I was pleased when Showmasters announced it because it's only about an hour's drive away from me. I live in Leon-Solent, which is a village on the Gosport Peninsula between Portsmouth and Southampton. So it was nice to have a local con. It fell on my weekend off, so I decided that regardless of what guests they announced, I would be attending both days just to support the event. As it was, there was a handful of guests I hadn't met before, plus a few who I was happy to meet again for various reasons. There was one first-time Who guest who was announced, who I was thrilled about, but unfortunately he cancelled relatively near to the event. That was Julian Bleach, who played Davros in the new series and also had roles in Torchwood and Sarah Jane, and was also in the Borgias and various things. So hopefully they'll get him back at some point, either at Bournemouth or elsewhere. Not knowing how busy it would be, given it was the first Bournemouth event, I decided to pre-book tickets. I went for a weekend pass, which saved a couple of quid, and to go early bird. It was the old format, so it was early bird between 9 and 11, and then standard entry after that, and you could either pre-book or pay on the day. So Saturday I left home about 7:15, got there just after 8:15. Again, not knowing how busy it was going to be, went for 6 hours parking. As it turns out, I didn't need anywhere near that, but as it was, joined the queue. There was about 150 to 200 people in front of me, so fairly busy at that time, but not overly so. By the time the doors opened, there was probably another 300-400 behind me. Went in, tried to get my bearings. They were using Windsor Hall and the Solent Hall inside the venue. The Windsor Hall is the big room where all the big bands play. When we went to see McBusted there back in April, that's where they played. So they had all of that downstairs area, plus the Solent Hall, which is just over the corridor from it, which is probably about 2/3 the size, maybe half the size. Again, so there was plenty of room. They had lots of stalls in the Windsor Hall, plus the gaming zone and the cosplay area. And then at the stage end, they had the bigger guests who they were expecting queues for. And then in the Solent Hall, they had some more stalls, the talk area and the smaller guests. Plus also, in a little room off of there, they had sports guests, and the bigger sports guests were in little booths just before you got into the Windsor Hall. Had a scoot round. Over the weekend they had two doctors there, Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, plus their companions, so I decided I would take the advantage of them both being there to get some multi-signed items done. So my first task was to compare the photos on Sylvester's desk with those on his two companions, and decided which ones I preferred, and as it was, the ones Sylvester had were better, so I went to him first. He had a short queue at this point. There was 2 or 3 people in front of me. There was a young lad and his dad who he was dealing with as I got there, and Sylvester was doing his usual little tricks and whistles and all sorts, keeping the lad entertained. He was, as he tends to do nowadays, stood up all the time, and he had a metal case on the desk in front of him that he was leaning on to sign. He signed the 2 photos I wanted signed, which I'll show you when the other people have signed them. I asked him for a photo. He said he wasn't sure if he was allowed to do one, but said yes, go on then, because there was no sign saying he wasn't, and sure enough he was allowed. So I gave my camera to the crew member, who again wasn't sure if he was allowed to do it. he took two for me for security, as it was. The first one was slightly blurred and the second one was extremely blurred, so I won't bother showing you the second one, but this is the slightly blurred first one of me and Sylvester McCoy. I asked how Sylvester was and he said he was fine, which was good, and he was looking in good spirits. I could already tell that I was going to get through everybody quickly, so I was sort of killing time in between guests, and I was also trying to find the photo shoot area, which I needed on Sunday, and I was walking round and round, couldn't find it. Eventually I worked out that it was actually upstairs, on a separate floor, where you would go to the upstairs area of the Windsor Hall, go to the balcony. Anyway, so after Sylvester, the next person I met was Bonnie Langford, who played Mel in Doctor who was assistant to Colin Baker and Sylvester. She's also famous for Bugsy Malone and Just William and all sorts of things, and is now in EastEnders. She has a certain persona on screen that some people have taken against. This is the second time I've met her, and both times all I can say is that she was lovely, very chatty, very appreciative, very down to earth, very normal, and a really nice person to meet. And I've nothing like her cliched persona. We had a little chat about coffee, as you do, especially at that time of the morning when I hadn't had one and she was waiting for one to be delivered. But as she signed my photos, she saw that Sylvester had already signed and said, "Oh, must go and see him." And so I said, "Yeah, I'm taking advantage of you both being here to get them done." And I said, "And Colin's here tomorrow." And she signed, as she signed for one of her and Colin, she said, "Oh, do give him my love." The photo of her and Colin, she only had two on her desk, one of which, when I picked it up, was pretty out of focus, so that really only left the one that I chose, which is a very typical mid-80s Doctor Who promotional shot. Not overly keen on it, but it was Hobson's choice. But this is the photo of her and Sylvester she signed for me. And I'll show you the Colin one after he signed it on Sunday. Crew member took two photos of me and Bonnie. As you can see, she was happy to get up and pose properly. So they're both okay, so this is me and Bonnie twice. I probably just moved in your shot because I just realised I'd left my drink over the table there, so I just got up to go and get it. So I apologise for the movement. Yes, so after Bonnie, I met Sophie Aldred, who played Ace opposite Sylvester McCoy. Ace is one of my two favourite companions, and I had a major crush on Sophie when I was 12, 13. First time I met her back in Collectomania 7, 10 years ago, I was just completely dumbstruck and could hardly utter two words to her. I met her again a couple of years ago and was a lot more civilised, and just had a normal chat with her this time. Asked how she was. She'd told me she'd only just come down the day before from Edinburgh, which was one hell of a trek. I'm guessing she was there for a festival. I said, "Oh, you know, it's the opposite for me. This is quite a local one." And she said, "Oh, where are you from?" And we talked about this part of the country and how she'd gone for a run along the beach that morning and how nice it was with the sea air. And I said, you know, how lucky it was to be near it, etc. Really nice chat. She's always lovely, in every way. This is the photo of her and Sylv she signed for me. And this is a photo of me and her, which a guy from the queue next to us actually took for me, so on the slim chance that you're watching this, thank you very much. Next, after Sophie, I met Dan Starkey, Dan plays Strax in Doctor Who. Prior to that he played other Sontarans. I had met him a few years ago at the entertainment media show that David Tennant was at, which was pre-Strax, so I wanted to meet him again for a Strax photo. He's not the overly chatty person, but very nice. I said how much I enjoy the Paternoster gang and that they should have their own series, and he said, oh, if only, maybe one day. And I said, yeah, well, in the good old days when they had the budget, you would have had one, no problem. He said, yes, the BBC's aware of that. So, obviously a bit of a sore point. But, you know, as I say, very pleasant, just not overly chatty. This is a photo he signed for me. And this is me and him. And then I met Rusty Goff. I've wanted to meet Rusty a few times before because he plays Simba, one of Papalazzaru's gang in League of Gentlemen. But finding photos of him from that is near impossible, certainly decent ones, or ones of him on his own. There's a reasonable shot of the whole gang. But I tend to prefer solo shots if possible, unless I'm going to get everybody to sign them. So I hadn't bothered meeting him before. He's also been in, he's one of the Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He was in Star Wars, he was in Flash Gordon, he's done all sorts. Fortunately, Mark Gatiss from A League of Gentlemen managed to get him a role in the Robots of Sherwood Robin Hood episode of Doctor Who from last series that Mark wrote. So I had a good excuse to meet him at last and got a photo of him as Little John in that episode signed. But we mainly chatted about League of Gentlemen, about the guys, how lovely they were, how much he liked Reese. And as he was talking, he was remembering lines and things that had happened. And yeah, really nice guy, really chatty. Glad to have met him at last. This is a photo he signed for me. And this is me and him. By now it's 10 to 11. I could tell by the speed I'd managed to get everybody. I mean, I could have quite easily been out there within an hour. As it was, I padded it out to nearly 2. I decided, apart from Sylv, who I had already had to get for the multi-signed items, everybody else who was going to be there on Sunday as well, I'd leave to Sunday because I knew I'd have to pad the time out because I had a photo shoot at 2 o'clock. So I knew I'd be there the best part of 5 hours. So I decided to leave then, so it was about 10 to 11. As I left, I could see a massive queue for the standard entry people waiting to come in, which was a nice sign. It looks like it got busy after I left. I had a quick walk around the lower gardens to make the most of the little bit of sunshine we had. And then headed home, and I was home just after noon, which was lovely. Decided Sunday, knowing that they're usually quieter, that I could probably afford to leave a bit later. Plus also, with the car park, I had the choice of hourly gaps up to 6 hours, and then it was just up to 12 hours after that. I didn't want to pay for 12 hours, so knowing I had the photo shoot at 2, I thought if I got there about 8:30, that'd give me to about 2:30. For the photo, make sure I got out of the photo shoot and done and away okay for the car park. Oh, speaking of car parks, I had 2 idiots on the way out on the Saturday driving up the down slopes. But anyway, swines. One of them wouldn't even give away as well. I called him naughty words with 4 letters. It sounded like Gareth Hunt. Anyway, yes, so I left about 7:30 on Sunday morning, got there just after 8:30, I think it was about 8:35, and I was in almost exactly the same place I was in the queue as Saturday, a little bit further forward, but only about 3 yards. So again, got in nice and quickly once the doors opened. Had another quick scoot round check where people were. For the multi-signed item, I needed to check who had the better signed item, better photo rather, and then decided to get into queue for Michael Bean, who had been quite busy on the Saturday morning, so I knew would probably be my longest queue. Met Michael before when I got a photo of him as Kyle Reese from the first Terminator film signed. He was also in the deleted scenes from Terminator 2 as Kyle. He's also known as for Hicks in Aliens. He's worked with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and lots of other things, but the main reason I wanted to meet him again was for a film he wrote and directed called The Victim, which I really enjoyed, and wanted to get him to sign my Blu-ray of that, which he did for me once he eventually started the day. So I was queuing for about 20 minutes before he even got there. But he was, last time I'd met him, he was, if you go back and watch the video, I think I said at the time, he was either jet lagged or ill, possibly even slightly drunk, but I don't think he was, with retrospect. I think he was mainly a combination of jet lag and ill, as I say. So he wasn't overly chatty, but this time he was happy to talk. I asked him if he was going to direct again, because he hasn't since he made The Victim, which was 2011. And he said he would, but he wouldn't do it the same way, because he wrote that in 12... No, he shot it in 12 days. He'd written it in 2 weeks, I think he said. It was all very rushed, and a lot of hard work and very stressful. So yeah, we had a nice little chat. And he signed the cover for me, which I'll show you in a minute, because I then went to the person who sat next to him, who is his wife, Jennifer Blanc, or Jennifer Blanc Bean, as she's also known, who was the star of, or co-star of, with Michael, and producer of The Victim. And she also produced and starred in a film called Among Friends, which was directed by Danielle Harris, who's another young actress who was in a couple of the original Halloween films and then starred or co-starred in the remakes. She's done lots of horror films. She was also in The Last Boy Scout, which is my favourite ever action film, and I'd met her before. But yeah, Danielle had directed Among Friends as well as starring in it, and I bought a signed copy of the DVD from her website, so I decided to add Jennifer to that as well. So as I went up to her with my copy of The Victim and Among Friends, she was thrilled. Said it makes a big difference when to sign those, because they're her babies, and you know, we had a little chat about how special they were to her, and she was taking great care to, you know, she said, oh, do you want me to sign the Among Friends cover in blue, so it's the same as Danielle's? I said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So she didn't have a blue pen, but Michael did, so she got his assistant to pass over the blue pen. And she was just saying, you know, such and such cast member will probably be over at some point, and so will this one, and so on and so forth. But yeah, we had a really nice chat. She had a baby 5 months ago. Really warm, really friendly. So this is The Victim that they both signed for me. And this is Among Friends. So Jennifer's signature is bottom right. Which she's actually just signed just above the little photo of her on it. This is a photo of me and Jennifer, and you can see Michael just in the background. Michael was no post photos. Next, after Jennifer, I watched the Doctor Who talk. Talks were free and unticketed, and it fell nicely in time, and I had plenty of time, so I went and grabbed a seat. It was about 5 minutes before it was due to start, and the talk was by Louise Jameson, Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, and Samuel Anderson. So it was a nice spread of years. We had Colin and Nicola together, and then Louise from an earlier period, and Samuel from New Who. He was Danny Pink in the last series. Very interesting, very enjoyable. Everybody was on form, and that killed half an hour nicely. So from there I went and got Nicola Bryant's autographs. Nicola played Perry in the last couple of Peter Davison episodes, and then most of Colin Baker's tenure. With Ace, my joint all-time favourite companion, and certainly as an actress, my all-time favourite classic Who companion, because she's gorgeous and lovely as a person as well. I was a member of her FON club, Friends of Nicola Club, about 10 years ago, which sadly she folded about 9 months into my membership, so I missed out on a few of the perks from that, but that didn't bother me. But I spoke to her about that, and she said how it was social media that sort of killed that off, because there was really no need for it anymore. It was all being done online, plus there's so many conventions now that she didn't need to organise her own events anymore. But she, she was all over the country and somewhere most weekends. Young lad in front of me had said to her, and I mean young lad, he must have been 7, 8 maybe. They said, "I expected you to be younger." And she sort of looked as if, don't know what to say to that. And then said to her, "How old are you?" And, she sort of, "Let's say I'm in my 5th decade." I said, "Oh." And so afterwards I just joked to her, "You can't ask a lady that." She said, "No." We had a good laugh about that, and we had a nice little chat. It was the first time I've actually seen her for 10 years. Only other time I met her was at my first Collectomania, when I wasn't doing photos with. So it's nice to finally get a photo with her. And I'd also, because she's my fave, booked a photo shoot with her. So I got her to sign a solo shot and a shot with Colin. So these are they. And this is me and her. From Nicola I went round to Colin. He's a bit frail at the moment, he's walking with sticks, not entirely sure what's wrong, hoping it's something easily fixable, if it's hips or something like that. But he seemed in good spirits. He signed both photos, one with him and Bonnie and one with him and Nicola, and I passed on Bonnie's love. He was doing photos in return for a donation to his charity, but I didn't really need one, having met him a couple of times before, and I hadn't budgeted for the donation, so I didn't. But these are the photos he signed for me. Plus also, although he was sitting down and I could have gone and sat next to him, given he wasn't well, I didn't want to put too much pressure on him. But as I say, mainly it was just because I didn't really feel the need for one. After Colin, it was time for my photo shoot with Nicola. Or eventually it was, after scouting around for a bit. So I went up to the photo shoot area. As I was waiting in line, Nicola came up and she needed to nip to the ladies before the shoot. As she came back, she came through the queue out where I was, and she looked at me and said, "Martin." I said, "Oh, you're good." And she sort of laughed. And then as we went in, she came, I went up to her and I just said, "Hi." She said, "Hi, Martin," she said, and I just melted, basically. And this was the photo shoot, which is one of my favourites. From there I went down and met Paul Gascoigne, or Gazza as he's commonly known. in my opinion, second greatest footballer this country's ever produced after Glenn Hoddle. I know many of you will put other names in different places, but that's my opinion and I'm sticking to it. He's been at a couple of events I've been to before. No, that's a lie. He's been to one before, that I was at, which was Milton Keynes earlier this year. But knowing he was going to be at Bournemouth, I decided to save him till now. He's doing well at the moment. I'm sure most of you are aware of his problems he's had with alcoholism and various other demons, but he's in good form at the moment. As I've said to a few people, I definitely met Paul Gascoigne, I didn't meet Gazza, who's more of a media construct. He just got back from a lunch break and he was doing a load of bulk items, signing them over, and they sort of spread over his desk, but as soon as I went in, he sort of looked up and reached and shook my hand. And he said, "What are you going to have?" And I was sort of looking, as I was after a Spurs photo. He said, "Oh, I've only got that one. That's of a free kick against Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final in '91." You know, he's just reading all this off. He knew what all the photos were from. And I had a look, and the actual shot of him, it was just his back. It was sort of shot from behind of the ball going in. So I declined that. I said, "Oh, you can't really see you in that one." He said, "No, you can't, can you?" So I went for an England one, as you will see, which he happily signed for me, and I asked him if he was well, and he said he was, and I said, "Good, that's good to hear." So, "Well, thank you very much," and shook my hand again. So it was a brief meeting, but very pleasant, and I'm so glad he's on good form. This is a photo he signed. I'd expected to be no photos, and so I'd booked a photo shoot with him, which was the 2 o'clock one, so we'll get to that in a bit. That's a lie, because before I went to Gaza, straight after Nicola's shoot, I went and watched about 2/3 of the Michael Bean talk, which was interesting. He was talking about aliens, about the new movie, or potential new movie, and a lot about his work with James Cameron. That's very interesting. Then I went, as I say, to get Gaza. Then I was going to get my last guest for the day, but she was at lunch. So I did some scooting around and picked up some bargains on the stalls. There was one stall that had a big box full of signed photos of footballers, completely unsorted, with just £5 each. And I flicked through and found one of Aaron Lennon, however you want to pronounce it, depending on whether you want to pronounce it correctly or how he does, who was one of my and my mum's favourite Spurs players of recent years. So snapped that up for a £5. This is it if you're interested. And then another stall had quite a few bargains. I picked up a dual signed photo of Richard Ayoade and Chris O'Dowd from the IT Crowd for £10, and also a signed photo of Holiday Granger from the Borgias, who's just about to appear as Lady Chatterley in Lady Chatterley's Lover, and has done various other things. That was a £5, and also a signed photo of Steve Coogan as Alan Partridge for a £5. All with certificates of authenticity showing when and where they were signed. So complete bargains, so snap them up. So this is the IT Crowd one. Holiday. And Coogan. The person I was waiting for still wasn't back by the time it was 2 o'clock, so I scooted up to my Gaza photo shoot. Again, you know, he was still obviously in good spirits. Put his arm round, shook your hand and held it for the photo, as you can see, and said thanks for coming and enjoy the day. And this is me in Gaza. And as I got back down, I could see that my final guest was back, so I had time to quickly nab her before I had to leave. Sarah Hagan, who played Amanda, one of the potentials in Series 6 of Buffy. Didn't have the best selection of photos of her. The only two Buffy ones were of her with all the other potentials, so as I've said earlier, didn't really want them because I would never get them completely signed. But she had a couple of nice headshots, so I picked one of those. We had a nice chat about, because she did the Glasgow show the previous week, so we had a nice little chat about her time in the UK and where she'd been. And I think she was trying to, because I hadn't mentioned anything, because I just picked a generic photo, I think she was trying to work out why I was meeting her, and she just looked at me, and in the end she said, "Big Buffy fan?" And I said, "Yes, it's much missed," and she just sort of smiled. And when she noticed I had my camera out, I said, "Oh, do you want a photo?" I said, "Oh, yes, please." She said, "Oh, I'll come round." So she walked, there was about 3 or 4 tables away before there was a gap, but she walked all the way round for me and posed for a nice photo with me. So this is a photo she signed. And this is me and her. And that was it. It was now about 2:10, so time to leave. So off I trotted. Managed to get out without any idiots in the car park. And got home. Yeah, really good event. It was nice and busy, especially after 11 on the Sunday. The standard people were still coming in as I left at 2 o'clock. So I don't think there's going to be any concerns about how popular the event is. They've already booked the next one for March 12th and 13th next year, which is for 2 days following my birthday. So that'll be a nice little birthday treat for me. I hope they get some decent guests. If not, I'm sure I'll go for at least one day anyway, because I'll be off work that week. So you always book my birthday week off if I can. Yeah, now that's it for this year for me. The Winter London Comic Con, which has been moved to Brighton because of venue issues. Basically, the summer one was so popular that Olympia are concerned because they've got other events on that weekend. So, Showmasters have moved the event to Brighton, where they were planning on introducing an event next year. But that's a weekend that I can't go, I can't get off of work. One of my colleagues is already on holiday, and my manager's weekend off. So I'm running the shop those 2 days. So I'm praying they don't announce anybody I really need. There's a slim chance I might be able to pull a favour from my manager because he owes me hundreds of favours. So if, for example, Eliza Dushku was announced or somebody of that ilk, then I might be able to go for 1 day, but it's highly, highly unlikely that I will be. And there's no Winter Milton Keynes anymore, so I'd say that's it for this year. As far as I know, unless something crops up anywhere. Then, so it'll probably be, they're doing a February London Comic Con, which hopefully I shall be attending, and then it'll be Bournemouth in March, probably a Milton Keynes one where they haven't announced a date, and summer London, but we shall see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if I don't see you before, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and see you in the new year.